is Rena Kennedy Lester. Welcome to Life, Hope, and All Things Kennedy, the life-building voice of wisdom. We're happy that you're here today with us as we discuss topics such as relationships, parenting, physical and mental health, finances, and life lessons. Thank you for being here today on Life, Hope, and All Things Kennedy.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the show today. I'm excited to be with you, and I'm excited to continue our discussion from last week when we were talking about surviving summer with kids. Surviving summer with kids and keeping them learning and making learning fun. This is a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, and I am so excited to be sharing the information with you. I've had a lot of response from this show. A lot of people have been interested in the topic, which is why we're continuing it today. Summer vacation doesn't have to be an educational wasteland. It can be a fun, learning, experiential paradise where children can still watch TV, they can still play their video games while they are enjoying staycations that stretch their minds and enhance their reading and math skills. As I said last week, students lose approximately 2 months of reading skills and 2.5 months of math skills during the summer months, after which their teachers have to spend an average of 4 to 6 weeks in the fall reviewing and reteaching skills that students lost during the summer. So guess what? Students can still be learning without trips to the dollar store for workbooks that kids absolutely hate and that parents are having to continually fight with them about to try to get them to work on during the summer. Parents can engage children in fun activities throughout the summer with vacations that we call staycations and other creative activities. Staycations can take place in your own backyard. They can take place in your own town, in your own state, and any other place that's about 4 to 6 hours away. Now, as I said last week, basically what a staycation is a place that's very inexpensive or free. We like free, but very inexpensive at the least, where families can engage and go for fun activities and do things with their kids during the summer. The staycations basically are, they can be parks, they can be a variety of things, and we're going to talk about what some of those things are. But it's called staycation because you don't have to really sometimes pack up and go anywhere. A lot of times you can just go for a day trip or, overnight trip if you're going to stay with relatives or friends or whatever. So here's how it works. You provide the activities, and the child acquires the motivation to continue learning. The child acquires the motivation to be creative, to be curious, and to develop their own resources for dealing with, quote, boredom. We all have heard that. I'm bored. Grandma, I'm bored. Mom, I'm bored. Dad, I'm bored. So this is a way for the kids can creatively come up with ways that will help you to continue their learning. Now, in a previous article I discussed the ABCs of what parents and communities wish for their children. And in this article, I talked about what some of those things are. Now, some of those things were, for instance, engaging our children in cultural activities and exposure to new ideas, new foods, and new places. And I talked last week about how to do some of these things during the summer. Exposure to their elders and to the wisdom of the elders is something that all parents want for their children and the communities want for their children. And exposure to the elders' wisdom. Healthy eating choices, healthy choices in thinking, healthy choices in money management and care of their bodies, lifelong learning. And then we want youth programs, sports programs, activities that will engage the children during the school year, after school, and then during the summer. These are some of the things that we talked about in the article. Also, we want our children to value education. We want them to value education. Now, believe it or not, some teachers worry, because teachers get a bad rap sometimes, but some teachers do worry about their struggling readers, and they worry about those students who are not continually learning and being exposed to learning activities. They worry about these kids. And then they celebrate those children who struggled during the year, who had words that they couldn't read, or they were having difficulties, say 9 months ago, and now they are a voracious reader, or, they're using the skills that they learned. Teachers celebrate these kids. They also worry about those kids who are functioning below grade level. In addition, even those kids who are in the gifted program, or kids who are average kids, they also want those kids to be able to advance and to function at their maximum potential. Now, last week, and some of you may have seen this on my Facebook page, I engaged my 7-year-old grandson, Skylar, in some of the activities that I'm talking about, because Skylar is very inquisitive. And so he was looking up some activities on the computer, and he came over to me and he said, "Grandma, can I read you my research?" Of course, I was surprised because I didn't know he was doing research. So I said, "Sure." So he started reading me some stuff that he had looked up about something that he learned in school. I said to him, "Well, Skylar, since you're wanting to do research, why don't you help me with some research for my radio show next week?" He eagerly and enthusiastically agreed, and I was surprised at that too. But it basically was me putting to practice some of the things that I talk about with others. So I said to him, "I want you to research free summer activities for kids." He typed it in the search bar all by himself without any assistance from me, because these kids are genius on the computer nowadays anyway. He typed it in, and then he pulled up some articles and he began to read them to me. I said, "Well, I can't remember all that. Why don't you write it down for me?" Now, some of you may have seen what I posted, because I posted it. It took him 3 pages to write a couple of things, because he writes very big. Of course, he's only in, he's going to 2nd grade. So he wrote very, very large. He also, his spelling was good, but the sentences, they didn't start in the right margin where it's supposed to and all that. But hey, he did the work. He came up with several activities for me. And so I'm going to share some of those with you. Now, if you would like a copy of some of the things that I talked about last week, or some of the activities that I am going to talk about today, then feel free to email me at allthingskennedy@gmail.com, allthingskennedy@gmail.com, or go to the All Things Kennedy Facebook page, and I am going to put a link later on today to a blog post that I am going to write about this, and I will have several of these activities listed. So here are some of the things that Skylar and I found. Number 1, aquariums. It was interesting to find out that there are aquariums in every state in the United States. Now, in terms of finding out exactly what cities they're in or whatever, I'm going to leave that up to you to do the research and find. But all you'd have to do is type in aquarium, and it will pull up the exact address, and it will pull up the fees, because some of these places do have fees, but it will pull that up for you. But aquariums. Now, one thing that I found that was interesting, in Georgia, Father's Day at the Georgia Aquarium in Atlanta is going to have a sale on tickets. They will be two for $60, and they must be purchased online in advance. But this is a special, and you can get 2 tickets for $60. Go online and it will give you the information about that. And I think I mentioned last week that on your birthday, you can also have free admission. So begin to look into some of these things because they're fun. The thing that I said also, how do we get our kids engaged in learning with these things? Well, basically what you do is you get your kids you give them an assignment before you get there or once you get there. You can have them write down, say at the aquarium, what were their favorite things that they saw at the aquarium. Write down some facts about what they saw. Later, when they get home, they may do some research on these things. Now, the key to making learning fun during the summer is to make sure that it is something that your child is interested in. For instance, if your child is interested in dance, you may have them look up famous dancers or particular types of dance, because then that way it would be something that the child is interested in. So you have aquariums. Another thing that you have are what I call BMBs. BMBs are basically low cost, especially if you're taking a group of people and you're going to share the cost of staying somewhere. Then the BMB is something that you can look up. You just type in bnb.com, BNB, the letter N, and it will basically give you houses, because people actually rent their houses during the summer. Some people rent them even during the year, and you get to stay there instead of acquiring expensive hotel costs and everything. So instead of getting high hotel costs, then you basically would stay at an Airbnb. The next thing would be the Museum of Aviation. Now, there's a Museum of Aviation in Warner Robins. In other places where there are like military bases or military installations, then I'm sure that they have some kind of historic site that you can go to and see things. Now, in Warner Robins, there's the Museum of Aviation. On July 20th, they will be having National Moon Day activities and exhibits from 10 till 2. And basically, that's going to be celebrating the Apollo 11 moon landings 50th anniversary. So you may have the child look up Apollo 11. They could look it up, look up some of the other space things and some of the facts about it. Now, I remember, and that's something that's dear to my heart, because and this was a long time ago, but when I was in middle school at Miller Junior High, our class took a trip to Florida, to Cape Canaveral, to see all of the science stuff and the space exhibits and the actual space shuttles and whatever. And so this would be even more interesting now, because there have been so many more flights since then. And so you can actually pull just go in, type in space exhibits, space shuttles, whatever, and if they're in your town, it will tell you where they are and how you can get to see the different exhibits. So this is something that kids enjoy, and kids especially enjoy space kind of things. They enjoy the Jetsons, for instance, capitalizes on that. That's an old show I was watching, but a lot of times we had the Jetsons was a cartoon, and some of the things that they were doing back then, like flying in space and living in space, people say that's what we're going to eventually do. I don't know about all of that, but it was capitalizing on the fact that kids like space. So museums of aviation, they may be called something different, but just type in, airplanes, space travel, whatever, in the town that you live in, and it will pull up whatever is available in your city. Now, something else, baking is something that you can do. You can bake cookies, cakes, casseroles, have cooking with your child. Last week we talked about doing it from an ethnic perspective, where you could go to the different ethnic portions of the grocery store and let them read about the different ingredients that different people use in different countries to cook. So you can pick a recipe because there are desserts in all different cultures. There are cakes in different cultures. There are casseroles, all different kinds of things. Because last week I said, Taco Bell is not the only Mexican restaurant. There are authentic restaurants that actually cook real Mexican foods. And so you can actually have the child to find some of those. Let them look at the recipe. And last week we talked about how they can use this. You can have them double the recipe, cut the recipe in half, make the recipe for a third of the people, pretend they're doing it for church, and they may have to quadruple the recipe. And so that is a math way of actually using the recipes that you come across. Bookstores. You can go to the bookstore. This is a free way that you can read some books in addition to the library. Let your child browse through the racks of books and find some books that they like. And if one way to give them a reward might be to buy a book for them and let them take it home. During the school year, they do book fairs and things like that. And the kids are really excited because my grandkids are real excited about the book fair. Grandma, you got to come to the school and you got to buy us a book. So this would be a fun way during the summer for the kids to actually enjoy finding books, reading books, and continuing their reading skills. Beaches. Beaches are enjoyable ways to spend the summer, going to the beach. Now, I added something else to it. Well, first, let me tell you what the beaches are around here. You can go to Jekyll Island, which is in Jekyll Island, Georgia. You can go to the beach in Savannah. Myrtle Beach is pretty close by. So there are several beaches. Type in beaches in your search bar and you can go to them. Locally here in Macon, there's Lake Tobosaki. We call that a beach because it's a simulation of a beach. It's not like the big beaches that you go to, but it's got water, it's got sand, and kids enjoy it. So you can go to the beach. Now, there is a beach called American Beach in Amelia Island. That beach is one of the first black beaches in the country. Now, at one time, and during Jim Crow laws times and segregation times, a lot of beaches would not allow blacks to come to the beach or to get in the water. And so in order to circumvent that problem, a lot of wealthy black started their own or bought beaches, and people ended up going to those. So this place in American Beach is a very nice one. I went there to visit when I was in Amelia Island, and basically it's composed of homes owned by black people on the beach. So there are several in other countries. This was the largest one, I'm told, out of all of the ones in the United States. I remember even when we went to Savannah Beach, that there were places in Savannah Beach that were only accessible to blacks. Now, I didn't really think anything about it when we were young and going to the beach because I just knew we were going to the beach. But I learned later that these were the places that the colors had to go. So this is a way that you can also have your child learn some history at the same time that they are enjoying their activities. Now, at all of these places also, they have placards up where you can read about the different things wherever you are. They tell you the history of it. They tell you some facts about it. Let the child read that to you. That way they're getting their reading skills in, and they're getting to pronounce words that they can't pronounce. But the biggest thing is that they're reading and their brains are getting some activity. Another activity is to use the telephone. This is a novel idea to a lot of young people because they don't really use their phones to actually have conversations and communicate with people. But you can have them call elderly relatives during the summer and have conversations with them. They can then write in their journals, some of the things they talked about. They can write some facts about that elderly person in their journal. They can interview that relative. Ask them some questions, like what were things like in your day? Did you all go to the beach? What did you do during the summer? That would be an exercise in writing as well as an exercise in reading, because then they could read back to their parents the things they found out about their relative. This is also an activity that can be used with relatives that you don't know very well, because I know in this day and time, a lot of young people don't really even know their cousins. When I was growing up, our cousins were pretty much our best friends. Our first cousins, we were all good friends, and we stayed in touch. We communicated. We looked forward to summers when we could hang out. Kids don't have that opportunity nowadays. So a way that they could get acquainted with their cousins is call them on the phone, interview them, find out some information about them, and then, plan some activities for when you will get to meet each other. Write letters to them, get their address, and actually communicate by mail. Or if you have to, look them up on Facebook or text them or whatever, but start the conversation with a phone call or by writing a letter. Churches have activities. Churches have a lot of activities going on, so you could type in the different churches or go online and just research activities for the summer at different churches. Caves. Going to caves. A lot of cities and places have different caves that you can go to. I remember it was Lookout Mountain had different caves with the different stegosites and all the different kinds of rocks and all those things in them. So there are different ones that you can go to and let your child explore. These are very, very educational, and they're a lot of fun just to kind of see things that you haven't seen. I know kids like picking up the crystal rocks off the ground, but inside these caves are actually the caves with the crystals in the wall of the cave. So this would be a good opportunity for your child to learn. This would be a geological lesson. Science. When I was in West Virginia, I went to a cave that was an abandoned coal miners' cave that was no longer operational. That was very interesting. So if you're in West Virginia or some of the other places where there's coal mining, then visit one of the coal mines, because the ones that are no longer in use. Because basically what we did was we went underground in the actual car, the type of cars that they go in when they are coal mining. We actually saw because they talked about it, how the coal was actually extracted from the walls. They told us about how they could tell if there was poisonous gas in the air and that kind of thing. So I'm sure that there are some of those still available to visit, even though a lot of the technology, I'm sure, has improved in terms of the coal mines. It's still interesting to go back and look at how things used to be done, because our kids need to know their history as well. They need to know how things were done in the past. Okay, let's see. Then there is the train ride in Cordele, Georgia. A lot of kids hear about train rides and how you can people used to travel by train and you would be a passenger on the train. Well, in Cordele, there is a train that rides from Cordele to Plains, Georgia and back. And I think you get out in Plains and you get to sightsee and walk around, get you something to eat if you'd like. And then a lot of times, especially during Christmas and some of the other holidays, they have some other special activities in addition to that, so that the child can actually enjoy a train ride. So that's a fun activity. Drama. Almost every city has a little theater, because there are people who enjoy acting in almost every city. And almost every city, like I said, has a little theater. Now, they publicize what their productions are going to be and when they're going to have a play and when they're going to put it on. Look for some of these and then take your child to the theater. Expose them to some of the cultural activities in your own community. Another thing you could do as far as the drama is after you find out what the play is, then actually check out the play from the library or go online and find it, and you might read the play. Or you may let the child act out and perform certain parts of the play with you. And you could actually either participate in the play, or you can sit back and be the audience and let your child or your children put on the play for you. We used to do this when I was young. My parents were so accommodating, and they would sit there and watch us, and they would clap and they would laugh, because we would read plays. We would find plays and we would actually put them on. We would dress up the parts, and our parents would let us, borrow some of the things that we needed, and we put on the play for them. So this is another activity that you can do. Your child is keeping the reading skills up while they're having fun, and is building and bonding relationships between the child and the family and the parents. The child is actually doing some things with the parents and actually getting to use skills at the same time. Eating is an activity, something we all do anyway. So why not make it an activity that the child can participate in, like I said earlier? But another variation on this activity is, for instance, choose a different culture for each week of the summer and find recipes that go with those different cultures, and find recipes to cook with your child, and then actually eat those different foods. And another thing that you can do while you're doing this is make it a point to eat at the table with your child, even if it's only a couple of days a week. In today's society, most people don't eat at the table together. They are either eating in the den, watching television, or in their rooms or wherever. But with a concerted effort, we can make this a learning activity with our children, like I said, by doing a weekly cultural event at our house. Read about what the different culture is. You can have German food one week, for instance, African food one week, Italian food, Spanish food, Vietnamese food, Chinese food. There are so many different cultures that you can have and that you can actually set up and plan to do these activities. And then, like I said, let your child read about the different cultures. Fishing is an activity that a lot of people enjoy doing. Let your child learn to fish. Grandparents like to go fishing, so let your child go fishing with their grandparent. In Perry, there is the Go Fish Educational Center, and they have a lot of activities. The child can actually get a fishing pole and fish when they're there. And then they have a lot of exhibits also that the child can see. Garden. Have them grow a garden. Now, you may not want to, do a whole big garden in your yard, but have them do a garden, what's called container gardens. You can buy the great big flower pots in Lowe's or in places like that, and actually plant different things in the big containers. Then you can have your child read about what it is that they're planting. What kind of soil does it need? How much sun does it need? How much water does it need? What kinds of things will not grow in their area? What kinds of things that you are planting cannot be grown, for instance, in another state? Have them to do some research and actually grow them. A fun thing to do is to grow some things that they're going to eat, especially herbs. They could grow those. You can grow some fruits. You'd have to have them research what they can grow and what would be able to survive. But if they don't grow, then they will know why, because they've read up on it. Did they overwater it? Did they not provide the correct soil acidity, this kind of thing, and let them research those things. And then if they're growing something to eat, then let them talk about the nutritional value of what it is that they're growing. Vitamin A, vitamin D, whatever, vitamin C. What is the value, nutritional value in the foods that they're eating? How many calories are in the food that they're eating? What is the benefit for eating them? Visit the historic homes in your community. Almost every community has historic homes. Go visit some of them. They have different activities during the year. Some of them are free, some are not, but they're low cost. It gives the child an opportunity to see how people used to live. With those, you could talk about how people lived in that era. What were the cooking situations like? For instance, I remember when I was growing up, my grandmother cooked on a wooden stove. They had wooden heat, ways to heat was with wood. So how did they heat? Was it by oil? What kinds of things did they use in that era of the antebellum homes or the old homes that you're looking at? In Richland, no, I can't think of the place, but they have a place near Americus, Georgia, where you can go and you get to eat different things and the way that it was cooked. For instance, the sausage is cooked in a big wash pot. Then they have the biscuits and all of that you can actually sample, and they do it the old-fashioned way while you're looking at the different cottages and whatever. Ice cream is hot. Summer is the time for ice cream. Make ice cream. There are ways that you can make it in a Ziploc bag. Let the child research how to do that, and then you enjoy eating the ice cream when it's finished. When I was growing up, my dad used to make ice cream in the ice tray. They had they were like the metal ice trays. It wouldn't be the trays now that have the divisions, the plastic ones already in them. But you may have or be able to find some of those ice trays. But my dad made that, and then he would put it in the freezer, and we would have ice cream. Another thing, even though it's summer, this is just an aside, my dad also, when we lived in Washington, D.C., and I'm sure you can't do this now because it's probably not safe, but, my dad made snow ice cream. He would collect snow and he would make ice cream for us. So there are so many memories that you can create with your child by doing some of these activities. And I promise you, they will be activities that your child will cherish and always remember. The other thing is you can churn ice cream in an old-fashioned ice cream churn. Churned ice cream. Is it time? Okay, churn ice cream and churn it in an ice cream maker. Now, research the more than 400 national parks in the United States. You can get passes for these. Go to your library. As I mentioned last week, libraries have free zoo passes. They have free passes to different parks. So go to your library, ask the librarian what kind of passes they have that you can get for the summer. The last thing, Storyline Online is an online streaming video that features actors and actresses reading stories to children, and it has illustrations, and they will hold it up and read it. I enjoy doing this, and my grandchildren enjoy watching them because they can go on themselves, type it in, and they have the stories. They get to pick the story they want to hear, and this is an enjoyable way to engage them in reading. So this is just the tip of the iceberg of things that you can do to engage your child in learning during the summer. Because remember, as I said, during the summer, children lose an average of 2 months of reading skills and 2.5 months of math skills. And as parents, grandparents, community leaders, we have an obligation to help keep our children engaged, and we can do it in a fun way. So These things are out there and they're available. You can contact me at allthingscanady@gmail.com for a list. As I said, look at my Facebook page, All Things Canady, and I will post a link to a blog that I'm going to write about this, and you will have ways to help your child stay engaged during the summer. So until next week, I look forward to having conversation with you again on next week. Until then, be blessed and you take care.
Thank you for experiencing the wisdom of life, hope, and all things Kennedy with his life-building attitudes and thinking from the perspective of timeless wisdom. Remember that you are valuable. You have purpose and God has